Hey everybody, and welcome back to Semi Stories. In today's story from r/BestOf Redditor updates, OP gets asked by her own mother to have sex with her stepdad. As you might have guessed, this is a weird one. You have been warned. My mom had me at 18 right out of high school. Long story short, my dad died at 19 while he was away at uni. Then my mom remarried at 21 and had my sisters. My stepdad, we'll call him Scott, was the only father I've ever known. He has been a great father, nothing out of the ordinary, absolutely perfect parenting, until I turned about 19. I remember Scott was becoming a little more touchy than normal, and a little too personal. He would offer me wine, which I declined, and would ask me about my sex life after one too many glasses. I brushed it off because I thought maybe he was just being a nosy father and just wanted to make sure his daughter wasn't having sex. Then this kind of stuff continued, to the point where my stepdad tried to kiss me last year. I told my mom and she just laughed and told me, "That's how he gets after too many drinks." I knew then I had to make plans to leave, so I started saving up. After that incident, things died down a bit until my mom got pregnant at 39. It's a higher risk pregnancy, so she's on a lot of bed rest and taking extra care of herself per her doctor. A couple of weeks ago, my mom and Scott sat me down and told me her doctor said that she should avoid sex during pregnancy due to various health reasons I won't get into. They asked me if I could have sex with Scott, just until she was able to have sex again. Of course I said no. I was livid. I was crying. She told me she'd be okay with it, that she'd be in the room as well. I told her that was even worse. Like, what are they thinking? I have enough money now for an apartment. I got approved and I'm signing my lease next week. My parents are ignoring me and the whole house is full of tension. My younger sisters don't understand what's going on and my mom told me not to say anything. But my sisters are smart and they know something is really up. And they won't stop asking me about it, especially the oldest. She came to me crying today and told me I better tell her what's going on right now. I didn't say anything. So, any advice? What do I tell her? What do I say to the younger ones? How do I tell a 16-year-old about this without being inappropriate or bashing my parents? The following comments are from this first post. Bashing your parents would be unfairly putting them down for something benign. What they've done is wrong and sick on so many levels. Forget about not wanting to be inappropriate because it's more important to prevent you and them from dealing with more abuse. It is highly likely that your other sisters will be subjected to this if they have not already. And they are younger and more easily victimized. You could speak to your teen sisters privately and ask them if they have had any uncomfortable experiences with your stepdad, like him talking too much about sex or making advances, and make it clear that you are a safe person to confide in. I would also reach out to a trusted family member or someone you can ask for help. This was OP's response. Last year, when he tried to kiss me, CPS interviewed all the girls, and the girls were very confused, because their dad had never said anything or done anything to them inappropriately. My aunt, who is a child therapist, called CPS to begin with and talked to each girl and said that there were no signs of foul play, which upset her, because she really hates Scott. But she was also really happy because, of course, he didn't do anything to them. CPS said that it was like a roommate complaining about sexual assault since I'm not his biological daughter. My aunt has been fighting to make my mom leave for years, but since Scott is not abusive to her or the girls and makes a lot of money, she won't leave. But my aunt has actually mentioned he's been manipulating her with kindness all these years so she would be okay with him having sex with me when I became an adult, and it worked. My aunt and I don't think he's going to hurt the other girls, but you never know. We'll most likely call child services again. My aunt and I are probably going to call again and try to get the girls out and with her, or my grandparents who want them to stay there. My concern is telling the girls. I would be devastated if I was 16 and someone told me my dad tried to have sex with my sister, so now I have to live with my grandparents. So what do I say to her? Do I break her heart? she received the following response. Yes, you need to break her heart so she will not be groomed into a sexual relationship with him. Then you can encourage her to get therapy. Another response to OP. You will never be the one to break her heart in this situation. It's your mom and stepdad who are breaking her heart. You're just the one who has to tell her. None of this is your fault. You are not responsible for the trauma inflicted on anybody here. Much easier said than felt, I know, but I can't articulate how strongly I believe this. Their trauma will involve you, but it will never be because of you. You're a good sister, a really, really amazing sister. I have to agree, to be put in such a position and your first worries being for your sister is very nice to hear. But then again, what an awful mother to even suggest such a thing. He might not be related, but it's still your daughter. And to then make it even worse. To suggest that you can even be in the room while it happens. I shudder to think about it. Also, what a terrible father to raise someone like this, like it's your own blood, and to then smile and suggest something like this. Really? You can't go a measly 9 months without sex, so your first thought is to pork your own stepdaughter? That is mad Coomer behavior. I'm glad OP can rely on her aunt for support through all of this. And support she did. OP posted the following update a little while later. But speaking of support, if you guys would like to support the channel, be sure to subscribe and like the video as it will help us continue to grow and produce quality content. Now then, on with the update. My aunt did what she said she was going to do. She barged in with 3 other people, one of them a social worker friend of hers, who was off duty, and my uncle. None of them are allowed at the house. As soon as Scott found out who they were, he called the police. Before the police even showed up, I told my 16-year-old sister and the 14-year-olds what happened. The 16-year-old got angry at her dad. She was walking around the house, ranting at her dad and crying. Eventually, she decided to come with my aunt and I, and then we would figure out where she could go from then on. However, the 14-year-olds did not believe me. They actually started laughing. Then they got angry and told me I was trying to destroy our family, and how could you make up such a sick lie? It got to the point where they threw me and my 16-year-old sister's stuff out the window. By that time, the cops came and told my aunt, uncle, and the social worker they had to leave the property. The social worker friend let the cops know everything that's been going on. The cops didn't care. They just cared about the noise and the trespassers. So I, my 16-year-old sister, my aunt and uncle, and their friend left. Very soon after, my grandparents came and got the other 3 girls, after the 14-year-olds called them and came to their senses. I found out from my grandma that one of the 14-year-olds confronted her dad, and he didn't deny anything. In fact, he called me a sex worker and said I shouldn't have any problems doing what he asked. That's when they packed the bag and called my grandparents. My grandparents explained everything separately to the little one. She told my grandpa she prefers him to our dad because grandpa doesn't yell at her. As much as that pained me, I hope it's enough to keep the girls at my grandparents for good. My 16-year-old sister is going to emancipate herself and stay with either our grandparents or our aunt. CPS was called, but it was my grandparents this time. I have multiple screenshots on my and my aunt's phone of my mother incriminating herself, so luckily we will be able to file charges and hopefully get Scott on the sexual offender registry. That way the girls can stay at their grandparents permanently. Thank you for all the support, and I appreciate each and every one of your comments. And to the survivors who shared their stories, you are all so strong. Thank you. OP answered this on the question why the aunt wasn't allowed over at all. Because they hate Scott and know he's a creep. Many years ago, when I was about 13, at my young sister's gender reveal party, my cousin, my uncle's daughter, who is trans, decided at university that she was female and came back as female. We all accepted and loved her the same, except Scott, who got a little drunk and lifted her skirt and said, "Do you still have your boy parts?" That's when my uncle beat the hell out of him and knocked over a couple of tables. From then on, half my family wasn't allowed back at the house per a trespassing order. They knew then that he was an absolute perv, but as a young child, I didn't fully comprehend it. I'm so glad Opie was able to get through to her sisters, get them safe and away from this absolute creep. I'm not surprised the cops didn't care or bother to figure out the situation. To play devil's advocate a little here, they can voice their concerns and try to figure out a temporary measure, but in what I was assuming it was a heated argument, their job was to restore order, and that's what they did. We don't have the full picture, so to say they should have done more after hearing the story, it kind of sounds like this would be more of a social worker type issue to deal with. I don't know about you guys, but what tilted me hard was when the stepdad did not even lie to his daughters. Acting like sleeping with your daughter, or wanting to, was a-okay. But then again, you read the final tidbit about the aunt not being allowed over and why that is, and all becomes much clearer. Anyway, let me know down in the comments if you would have done something differently, and if you're ever in such a horrible situation, be sure to get the help you needed. Talk about it. The police might not always be able to help, but I'm sure they can get you in contact with the people who can and will fight to make that difference. Anyways, I will speak to you beautiful people again in the next one. See ya!